My Fair Lady is a 1964 film musical ready-made for family viewing. Professor Higgins, played by Rex Harrison, is the confirmed bachelor who is an expert in phonetics and who comes across a common flower girl in Covent Garden, whose language is as common as can be.
Someone's head resting on my knee, warm and tender as he can be, who takes good care of me, oh, wouldn't it be lovely?
He ends up making a bet with his newfound friend Colonel Pickering that he, using his expertise in phonetics, could pass off this ordinary girl as a duchess. His boast being that, if only he were left to apply his knowledge, teaching her how to speak like a duchess, people invariably would conclude her to be a duchess. Professor Higgins holds that people are imprisoned by their speech, their class being evident the moment they open their mouths. Thus, if only one were to speak properly, one would be accepted among a higher, more affluent class.
Why can't the English teach their children how to speak? This verbal class distinction, by now, should be antique. If you spoke as she does, sir, instead of the way you do, why, you might be selling flowers too. I beg your pardon.
And so Colonel Pickering, having called the professor's bluff, the experiment, the bet, gets underway. The flower girl, Eliza Doolittle, is tutored night and day, worked to the point of exhaustion. The battle of wills between Miss Doolittle and Professor Higgins is quite remarkable, the standout performance being that of Rex Harrison, whose abrupt, blunt, curmudgeonly professor, who doesn't care one jot for anyone's feelings, is just magnificent. The moment when at last the penny drops and Eliza Doolittle comprehends and begins to enunciate as he wishes is quite sublime. It is the transformation of the caterpillar into the butterfly. As with so much in this film, it is immediately met with a musical number.
The rain is mainly in the plain.
Bravo!
The rain is mainly in the plain.
The set pieces in this film musical are of an exceptionally high standard. Lerner and Lowe found the right words and the right tune for every occasion. And so, as young Miss Doolittle is still giddy from her achievement, she breaks into yet another memorable tune.
I could have danced all night, I could have danced all night, and still have begged for more.
With Miss Doolittle progressing in her training, she gets to appear at the races at Royal Ascot. This scene in particular borrows heavily from the theatre production, with many of the ladies' costumes being stylized and coordinated in black and white for effect. Among all this splendour, Audrey Hepburn emerges a veritable vision. Naturally, not yet fully trained, Eliza Doolittle gets it all wrong. But she makes sufficient an impression to have a young man fall in love with her. And my, can he sing.
All at once am I several stories high, knowing I'm on the street where you live.
The entire movie is a tour de force. Miss Doolittle's reprobate father, who has never yet done an honest day's work in his life, will even go so far as to sell her to Professor Higgins, if only to provide him with sufficient drinking money for some time.
A man was made to help support his children, but with a little bit of luck, they'll go out and start supporting you.
The story soon enough leads to Miss Doolittle rising to the challenge at appearing at the embassy ball, where she dazzles everyone, one expert even concluding that she is a princess of royal blood. But if many would think that would be the finale, it is merely the conclusion of the bet between Professor Higgins and Colonel Pickering. For Eliza has been awakened, made aware of horizons she never knew existed. Invariably she craves recognition as the person she has now become, from none more so than from Professor Higgins. But to him she is still that ordinary flower girl. He cannot comprehend what it is she could possibly want from him. More so, he fails to realize that he has in fact grown fond of her. When she leaves and decamps to his mother, he is most put out, frustrated both at his creation having grown a mind of its own, but so too at his missing her, albeit that he has a strange way of showing this.
Why is thinking something women never do? I mean, why is logic never even tried? Straightening up their hair is all they ever do. Why don't they straighten up the mess that's inside?
Miss Doolittle, meanwhile, comes across her father, who, thanks to an intervention by Professor Higgins, has come into money, and now is finding himself obliged to marry, but intends to at least have one more last booze-up prior to the marriage.
I'm getting married in the morning. Ding dong, the bells are gonna chime. Pull out the stopper, let's have a whopper, but get me to the church on time.
But far away from such frivolity, Professor Higgins ends up confronting Miss Doolittle at his mother's, finding it impossible to make any headway and growing more cantankerous by the minute. But the puppet has by now well severed the strings and is talking back with equal confidence.
They can still rule the land without you. Windsor Castle will stand without you. And without much ado, we can all muddle through without you.
It is on the way back home that the grumpy, impossible old goat, after much fulminating, discovers his own longing for his fellow soul. At last we see that he is touched, that he too is possessed of a human heart, of human frailty.
I've grown accustomed to her looks, accustomed to her voice, accustomed to her face.
The happy ending is inevitable. It brings to a close a very clever story, and does so with grace and class. To top it all, it has one of the most memorable closing lines of any movie. When it comes to Audrey Hepburn, she in fact did not sing the pieces of Eliza Doolittle. Her singing voice was courtesy of the very talented Marnie Dixon, or at least the two voices were to some extent mixed together in order to allow Miss Hepburn to sing soprano. But whoever voices the songs is by the by. These are exceptional, memorable numbers, and the quality of the delivery is outstanding. The film production was heavily inspired by the previous stage musical, which first appeared on Broadway in 1957. Right from the off in the stage performance, Professor Higgins had been played by Rex Harrison. Having first played the part on Broadway in the US, and then in the West End in the UK, Rex Harrison owned this part. It shows. He embodies the Professor. Incidentally, his counterpart on stage as Eliza Doolittle had been Julie Andrews, but she was passed over for Audrey Hepburn for the movie. As it turned out, this was an inspired decision all round, as Audrey Hepburn made the part her own, and it freed Julie Andrews to move on to another project, where she got to play Mary Poppins instead, for which she won an Oscar. I'll just come right out with it. I think this is the best film musical ever made. I fully appreciate the brilliance of other outstanding musicals, but I find this one to be the finest of them all. Everything about this film oozes quality. The story is a great one, based on George Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion. The music is outstanding. The costume and scenery are stunning. The performances are inspired. Both Rex Harrison and Audrey Hepburn shine in their roles, and my old favourite, Wilfred Hyde-White, excels as the charming Colonel Pickering. There are few movies I would hold to be perfect. This is one of them. It is a joy to behold. I am not the only one who thinks so. In 1964, it won the Oscar for Best Picture. I know that to a large degree, film musicals have fallen from favour these days, but I really recommend you give this one a try. The film is very funny. The songs are very good. The characters are memorable and lovable. More so, the romantic sentiments between Professor Higgins and Eliza Doolittle are far from obvious at the beginning, and gradually grow as both impart to the other a part of humanity they had hitherto not possessed. For this story is as much the tale of a grumpy curmudgeon being restored back to life, as it is about a flower girl at the very bottom of society being elevated by the education of a learned professor. So if you have never watched a film musical in your life, make My Fair Lady your first one. I would be astonished if you do not enjoy it. That's all for now from the projection booth atop the Cyber Pass. Thank you very much, and goodbye.